Good evening. We begin tonight with a political earthquake in South Asia that is sending shockwaves from Dhaka to Delhi to Washington. In Bangladesh, the opposition Bangladesh Nationalist Party, the BNP, has claimed a landslide victory in the country's first election since the historic 2024 student-led uprising that ousted longtime leader Sheikh Hasina. According to unofficial results confirmed by election officials to Al Jazeera, the BNP has secured 209 seats in the 300-seat parliament, easily crossing the 151-seat threshold needed for a majority. Its leader, Tarique Rahman, the exiled son of former Prime Minister Khalida Zia, is now set to become the country's next prime minister, marking a dramatic reversal of fortunes for a party that was effectively banned from the last election. This is a 12-minute deep dive into what this seismic shift means for Bangladesh's 170 million people, for regional stability, and for the global balance of power. I'm your host, and this is Kenya News Update today. Let's start with the raw numbers because they tell a story of overwhelming change. The BNP's claimed 209 seats represent a commanding 69.6% majority in the Jatiya Sangsad, the national parliament. Their closest rival, the Islamist party Jamaat-e-Islami, which was a key ally of the BNP in the past but ran independently this time, has secured 68 seats, or 22.6%. The once dominant Awami League, the party of ousted leader Sheikh Hasina, has been reduced to a mere 18 seats, a catastrophic collapse from its previous supermajority. A scattering of 5 seats went to independent candidates and smaller parties. This isn't just a win, it's a political obliteration of the previous ruling establishment. The voter turnout, according to preliminary data from the Election Commission, was a staggering 78.2%, one of the highest in the nation's history, indicating a population desperate for change and fully engaged in this democratic reset. But to understand the magnitude of this moment, we must rewind to the pivotal year of 2024. For 16 years, Sheikh Hasina and her Awami League had consolidated power, a period marked by significant economic growth, but also by intense allegations of authoritarianism, electoral manipulation, and suppression of dissent. The flashpoint came with widespread student protests against government job quotas, which quickly snowballed into a nationwide Gen Z-led uprising. Fueled by social media and a deep-seated frustration with political dynasties and corruption, hundreds of thousands of young Bangladeshis took to the streets. The protests, which saw violent clashes with security forces resulting in over 120 confirmed deaths, forced Hasina to announce she would not seek another term and to call for a neutral caretaker government to oversee new elections. That caretaker government, led by a panel of retired judges and civil society figures, has been administering the country for the past 20 months, overseeing today's vote. This brings us to the central figure of this new era, Tarique Rahman. At 58 years old, Rahman has lived in exile in London since 2008, following corruption convictions he and his party decry as politically motivated. He is the senior vice chairman of the BNP and the acting chairman in lieu of his ailing mother, Khalida Zia, who is under house arrest in Dhaka. For years, Rahman has been a specter in Bangladeshi politics, directing party strategy from afar via video link. His return, whether physically or symbolically as prime minister, is fraught with legal and political complications. The caretaker government has indicated it will not interfere with the judiciary, meaning Rahman's convictions stand. However, there is a strong expectation that a BNP-dominated parliament will move quickly to pass legislation granting him, and potentially his mother, amnesty or a retrial. His first priority, according to a statement released by the BNP, is to return to Bangladesh by Sunday to form a government. The international community, particularly the United States and the United Kingdom where he resides, will be watching his travel plans closely. So, what does a BNP government mean for Bangladesh? We must examine 3 critical areas: the economy, foreign policy, and domestic governance. First, the economy. Bangladesh under the Awami League was a development darling, with GDP growth averaging over 6% for a decade, driven by its massive ready-made garment industry, which exports over $46 billion worth of goods annually, primarily to the United States and the European Union. The BNP has campaigned on a platform of tackling the soaring cost of living and endemic corruption. They have promised to renegotiate what they call unequal energy contracts with foreign companies and to launch investigations into large-scale infrastructure projects, like the multi-billion-dollar Padma Bridge for graft. Economists warn that such moves could spook foreign investors, who have poured over $3.5 billion into the country's stock market and energy sector in the last 5 years alone. The Bangladeshi taka, which has depreciated by nearly 25% against the US dollar since 2022, will be under intense scrutiny in the coming weeks. Second, foreign policy. This is where the global implications are most profound. Sheikh Hasina's Bangladesh was a steadfast ally of India and maintained a cautiously cooperative relationship with China, participating in the Belt and Road Initiative. The BNP's historical stance has been more skeptical of Indian influence and warmer towards Pakistan and China. A key immediate test will be the management of the Teesta River water sharing dispute with India, a decades-old issue that affects millions of farmers. Furthermore, under President Donald Trump's administration, the United States has taken a harder line on human rights and democratic backsliding. The State Department imposed visa restrictions on Bangladeshi officials in 2023. A peaceful transfer of power to the long-oppressed BNP will likely be hailed in Washington as a victory for democratic forces. However, the U.S. will be wary of any potential alignment that strengthens China's footprint in the Bay of Bengal. We can expect high-level diplomatic visits from both New Delhi and Washington in the next 90 days as they assess the new political landscape. Third, domestic governance and human rights. The BNP's victory is, in large part, a mandate from the youth who led the 2024 uprising. They will demand accountability for the violence during those protests. The BNP has pledged to establish a Truth and Reconciliation Commission to investigate the deaths of over 120 protesters, and to reform the notoriously powerful security apparatus, including the Rapid Action Battalion, or RAB, which has been sanctioned by the U.S. for human rights abuses. However, the BNP itself has a checkered history. During its last stint in power in the early 2000s, it was accused of political violence and harboring extremist elements. The party has sought to rebrand itself, but its alliance with the Islamist Jamaat-e-Islami in the past remains a point of contention for secular voters. Managing the expectations of its young, liberal base while maintaining cohesion within its own conservative ranks will be Tarique Rahman's first major political tightrope walk. Now, let's consider the regional reaction. In India, the mood is one of deep concern. Delhi had grown accustomed to a pliant government in Dhaka that cooperated on security, curbing anti-India militant groups, and managing their shared 4,000-kilometer border. A BNP government is seen as less predictable. Pakistan, on the other hand, has already congratulated the BNP, recalling historical ties. China has issued a standard statement calling for stability and continued cooperation. For Myanmar, this could complicate the Rohingya refugee crisis. Bangladesh hosts over 1 million Rohingya Muslims who fled violence in Myanmar. The Awami League government, despite tensions, engaged in repatriation talks with the Myanmar junta. The BNP has been more vocal in its criticism of Myanmar and may take a harder line, potentially straining relations further and affecting the humanitarian situation in the vast refugee camps in Cox's Bazar. What about the role of the military? The Bangladeshi military, with over 150,000 active personnel, has historically played a kingmaker role, having directly ruled the country for 15 years. Since the return to democracy in 1991, it has remained largely in the barracks but is a powerful institution. It intervened in 2007 to install a military-backed caretaker government. Its stance during the 2024 uprising was crucial. Its decision not to crack down decisively in support of Hasina was a key factor in her ouster. The military's chief, General Aziz Ahmed, has publicly stated the army's allegiance is to the Constitution and the people. The smooth conduct of this election under the caretaker government suggests the military is currently comfortable with the democratic process. However, its long-term relationship with a BNP government led by a convicted exile will be a critical factor for stability. The BNP will likely seek to reassure the military brass and maintain the current defense budget, which stands at $4.7 billion for the 2025-2026 fiscal year. Looking ahead, the immediate timeline is critical. The BNP says it will form a government by Sunday. The Election Commission is expected to officially certify the results within the next 48 hours. Once certified, President Mohammed Shahabuddin, a former Awami League member, will have to invite the largest party to form a government. This process itself could be a source of tension. The first 100 days of the BNP government will be scrutinized for its actions on several fronts. Will Tarique Rahman attempt to return? Will they pass an amnesty bill? Will they initiate corruption cases against Awami League figures, potentially triggering a cycle of political vengeance? And crucially, will they follow through on economic promises to lower inflation, currently running at 9.5%, and create jobs for the millions of young people who voted them in? In conclusion, the BNP's landslide victory is not merely a change of government. It is the culmination of a revolutionary movement that began in the streets 2 years ago. It represents the forceful return of a political dynasty that was left for dead and the dramatic exit of another that seemed unassailable. For the people of Bangladesh, it is a moment of immense hope tempered by uncertainty. The challenges are staggering: an economy under stress, a polarized society, and a treacherous geopolitical neighborhood. The world will be watching to see if this new chapter leads to a more democratic, prosperous, and stable Bangladesh, or if it unleashes a new period of turmoil. The promise of 2024's uprising now rests on the shoulders of Tarique Rahman, and the BNP. The real work begins now. For Kenya News Update today, this has been a 12-minute deep dive into Bangladesh's political transformation. We'll continue to follow this story closely. Subscribe to Kenya News Update today for more in-depth global analysis. Good night.